Hi, my name is John Kimbrough, and I work at 105.9 KISS. I also work at Beasley Media, and there's many stations that work there, so including KISS, 105.1 The Bounce, Praise Network, couple rock stations, 101 The Riff, and WCSX, and Sports Talk The Roar. I graduated from Thurkel Elementary, which is a Detroit public school. I went to Paul Robeson Academy for middle school. I graduated from Detroit Central High School. I studied at Specs Howard School of Broadcast and Media Arts, where I graduated with a broadcast media degree, which got me my job at the radio station. I am just honored to be here and about to read some books. Future Scholars, I have probably one of the greatest books I've probably ever read. She Was the First, The Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm, written and illustrated by Kathleen Russell Brown and Eric Velasquez. I'm telling you, if you don't know who Shirley Chisholm is, we are definitely going to get into it. Let's get it. Shirley liked to be in charge. As a young girl, at home and at school, she liked to do things her way. In college, she outtalked anyone who opposed her on the debate team. After graduating, Shirley became an educator and a community activist, standing up for the rights of women and people of color. Her small stature and fiery determination often took people by surprise, but they listened. In 1964, Shirley brought her voice and leadership to politics as the first black woman to serve in the New York State Assembly and later as the first black woman elected to Congress. She championed gender and racial equality, educational programs, and the needs of the poor. Then in 1972, Shirley shared her ideas with voters nationwide. She became the first black person to seek the presidency of the United States as a major party candidate. Shirley Chisholm, a woman of many firsts, was a legendary political trailblazer whose legacy is a beacon for the diverse leaders of today. Here is her inspiring story. She was the first. To anyone who's dreamed of doing something that other people say is silly or impossible, go ahead and try. Create your own path and be a trailblazer like Shirley Chisholm. For Shirley Chisholm and the often overlooked people of the West Indian community who have made valuable contributions to American history and culture. Let's get into it. On a cold November day in 1924, Shirley Anita St. Hill came into this world. Back then, nobody had an inkling that she would open a door to history. Shirley, the oldest of the St. Hill girls, was a handful for her mother and papa. From the time she was little, Shirley liked to be in charge. At 3, she was already leading children twice her age around the neighborhood, telling them where to go, which games to play. Listen to me, Shirley said, and they did. Look at her, leading them on. The St. Hill family lived in Brooklyn, New York. Papa was a baker's helper, and mother was a seamstress and a domestic worker. They barely earned enough money to keep food in the cupboards and supper on the table. Mother and Papa made a tough decision. They would send the girls to live with mother's family on the Caribbean island of Barbados. While the children were away, Papa and Mother would save their money, and Shirley and her sisters would get a taste of country living. In 1928, Shirley, her sisters, and mother boarded an ocean liner named the Vulcania. After 9 rocky days at sea, they arrived in Barbados. From the port, they rode a rickety bus to grandmother Emmeline's farm. Shirley spotted her grandmother right away. The thin West Indian woman stood as tall as a reed. She looked like serious business. Oh, grandma didn't play. That's old school there. Island life was nothing like city living. The days were hot as an oven, and every night Shirley heard an animal concert. The days were as hot as an oven, and every night Shirley heard an animal concert of chirps, clucks, and moos. Her new home also had something Shirley had never seen, an outhouse. Now, if you don't know what outhouse is? An outhouse is a bathroom outside of the house. And yeah, it's not the most ideal thing. But let's go on. Mother stayed for a few months to make sure the girls were settled in. Then she had to go back to Brooklyn to help Papa. The day Mother left, everyone's face was wet with tears. Mm. Grandmother Emily's house was stocked with love, rules, and chores. Fetch the well water, feed the animals, graze the cows. When they finished, Shirley, her sisters, and her cousins enjoyed a special treat. They raced to the beach, ran through the sand, and jumped into the clear blue water. To Shirley, the ocean felt like warm magic. Look at them. I can't swim, but that's neither here nor there. The local school was a one-room building with more than 100 children, aged 4 to 11. The teachers were strict and punished students who did not behave. Shirley was a fast learner. She could read and write before she turned 5. Barbados was filled with people with brown skin like Shirley's. She saw teachers, preachers, and shopkeepers taking care of island business. Seeing them, Shirley understood that when she grew up, she could take charge and get things done too. 7 years went by. Mother and Papa were struggling to earn money. The Great Depression of the 1930s made it hard for them to find steady jobs. But no matter, Mother wanted her girls back home. In 1934, the year Shirley turned 10, she and her sisters moved back to Brooklyn and a different life. The city was crowded with automobiles, tall buildings, fast-moving people, and a confusing maze of streets. During the icicle cold winters, Shirley shivered thinking about the warm Barbados sunshine. I am thinking about it too. At her new school, Shirley got a sad surprise. Instead of starting 6th grade, she was put back in the 4th grade. Shirley's schooling in Barbados had been excellent, but the teachers in Brooklyn said she didn't know enough U.S. history. Shirley was upset and embarrassed and bored. Sometimes when the teacher wasn't looking, Shirley threw spitballs and snapped rubber bands at the younger kids in her class. Once her teacher realized why Shirley Once the teacher realized why Shirley misbehaved, the school gave her a tutor. In time, Shirley learned all the history she needed to catch up with her classmates. That was nice. Okay. Education was important in the St. Hill home. The girls made regular trips to the library to borrow books. When the holidays came, Shirley was sure to receive a book as a present. Every evening, the family dinner table came alive. Papa talked first. Shirley listened closely and asked questions as he discussed world events. Papa read 3 newspapers every day. He was full of information. When Papa's friends stopped by, Shirley stayed up late and listened through the bedroom door. The men talked for hours about world leaders and politics. Papa said everybody should be treated the same. Poor, rich, black, white. Papa's words stirred something inside Shirley. She started paying more attention to current events. In high school, Shirley earned top grades and was accepted at several colleges. She chose Brooklyn College, just a subway away from home. The school was bigger than she had ever attended. There were so many students. Shirley loved her classes. Her brain buzzed with new information about countries, foreign languages, and different cultures. She joined the Harriet Tubman Society, a club where she learned more about black history. And nobody was surprised when Shirley signed up for the debate team. She could outtalk anybody. After her schoolwork was done, Shirley enjoyed going to parties and dancing. Oh, she won the dance contest? Oh, we gotta go back to that. She won the dance contest. Okay. Shirley wanted to use her education to make the country and the world better for everyone. But how? Her favorite teacher, Professor Warsaw, knew Shirley was a great debater. He suggested she give politics a try. Shirley had doubts. She loved children, so she decided to be a school teacher instead of a politician. She would make a difference by helping children. After she finished college in 1946, Shirley had a hard time finding a job. Most doors were closed to her because she was black and she was a woman. Plus, she was very short. Don't judge me by my size, Shirley insisted at an interview by Don't judge me by my size, Shirley insisted at an interview to be a nursery school teacher. Give me a chance. Shirley got the job. During the day, Shirley worked with the children. In the evenings, she worked with the community groups. Shirley noticed that people with power and money didn't seem to care about folks who were poor. This bothered her. She remembered how it felt to be poor. So she spoke up and tried to make a difference for people who didn't have power or money. One time, Shirley encouraged a woman in a local group to stand up to the men and demand respect. Another time, she noticed that the officials in charge of a meeting were ignoring everyone waiting in line to ask questions. Shirley refused. Oh, okay. Shirley rushed to the front and made sure that everyone was allowed to talk. In the middle of all this work, Shirley found love. In 1949, she married Conrad Chisholm, a private investigator. He was handsome, smart, and crazy about Shirley. In the 50s and 60s, Shirley joined many organizations. Some local leaders and politicians didn't like her ideas. They called her a troublemaker because she stood up for women and people of color. But the people who needed help were glad Shirley was on their side, fighting to make sure that they were treated fairly. By 1964, Shirley's heart told her it was time to step into politics. She had a gift. People listened when she talked. Her words motivated them to action. Shirley decided to take a chance and run for the New York State Assembly. And she won. After Shirley became Assemblywoman, she worked to help the people of New York. She worked to pass laws to help sick people get the medicine they needed. She worked to make sure landlords kept the heat on in the winter. She worked to help people find jobs and raise pay for workers, including those who clean houses like her mother did. She worked to help poor students pay for college. She didn't say or do things just to be popular. She fought for what she believed was right, not what was easy. She followed grandmother Emmeline's advice and always to speak the truth. 4 years later, Shirley decided to run for U.S. Congress. She promised to help people all across the country. Some of the men in Congress tried to keep Shirley out. They scolded her and said that women didn't belong in politics. One of her opponents called her a little school teacher. Many people said that they would never vote for a woman. Shirley dusted off that mean talk. She kept meeting with people and asking them to vote for her. Her campaign slogan was unbought and unbossed. Shirley's hard work paid off. In 1968, she was the first black woman elected to Congress. In the House of Representatives, Shirley kept her promise. She worked for laws that helped women, children, students, poor people, farm workers, Native people, and others who were often pushed aside. She fought for health care. She spoke up for military veterans. She spoke out against war. While in Congress, Shirley gave many speeches, and people of every color and background liked her ideas for change. But Shirley wanted to take her message to an even bigger audience. So in 1972, she decided to seek the highest political office in the United States. Shirley was the first black person, Democrat or Republican, to run for president. Shirley's campaign was full of ups and downs. Although many people helped her and followed the Chisholm Trail, their support wasn't enough. Shirley didn't win the nomination, but her work paved way for the future, for the first black president of the United States, and one day, the first woman president. Shirley Anita St. Hill Chisholm opened a door to history. Wow. This is an afterword here. We're not going to get into all this, but this is wonderful. Shirley Chisholm was definitely a true inspiration to many black people, not just, women or men, but just, everyone. Wow. Jesse Jackson. A lot of people don't know. Jesse Jackson was, he could have won. He ran for president as well. He was the first black man to run for president. Wow, this is nice. She Was the First, The Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm by Catherine Russell Brown and Eric Velasquez.